Braylon Mullins is a ridiculous shooter. Anyone who watched the Elite Eight game where he hit this unbelievable all-time game winner against Duke to go to the Final Four, I mean, what a fucking shot. The fact that they got this ball back is incredible. Mullins spotting up from the logo, cashing that shot with .3 on the clock. And I know what the title says, yes, Mullins is more than a shooter, but I do need to talk about his shooting for a bit, because Braylon is a ludicrous off-ball shooter where he catches and fires from ridiculous angles, off balance. He organizes so well in midair, and you can't soft switch dribble handoffs against him. Just trying to pass this off, because most players won't rip with this kind of space, but late in the shot clock, you have to get up deeper into Braylon Mullins' face. He is always a threat to rip off of like a semi-contest and even off of backwards momentum like this. Mullins can fire up the three. I think this is a great test of who's like a real special NBA shooter. If you're ripping over contests without blinking, Mullins is that kind of shooter. And we're going to talk all about Mullins' game today. So like, comment, subscribe. It's been a couple days. I've been out of town, but I'm going to get back on the daily or mostly daily grind. So like, comment, subscribe. And Mullins can also shoot off the dribble, step back out of the pick and roll. That's cash. He doesn't shoot as much off the dribble, but when he needs to, when he gets the opportunity, and he can shoot off forward momentum as well. He gets a lot of lift on this jumper as well, but manages to keep a clean energy transfer, which a lot of players who jump really high on their shots think AJ DeBanza struggle with that energy transfer. People will underrate his shooting because he shot 32.8% from three this year, but 3-point percentage, especially in single season samples, is basically useless. But what we do know that is not useless, elite free throw shooter on small volume, but he's been an elite free throw shooter going back to high school, I believe, and elite volume on threes, 198 threes, that's almost 14 per 100, and elite efficiency on a lot of unassisted non-rim twos. And if we look at his age, very simple query: 10 threes per 100, 85% from the line, 6'5" or taller, true high major, and under 21. And I didn't want to like do under 20 to cut out Brandon Miller or like Luke Kennard, who's barely older than Braylon Mullins. But yeah, not a lot of players in the Bartorvik database since 2008 with Mullins' size and shooting volume, free throw making. And if we look at the far two numbers, there's Braylon Mullins. 46 makes is more than everyone but Trey Johnson and one other player here I'm too lazy to look at, but so many special shooters in that 25 class. These are basically all like high-level elite NBA shooters, the ones that make it, and Mullins is very much of that ilk. But for these elite shooters to really stick and like make playoff rotations like I think Mullins can, they have to bring stuff other than shooting, and Mullins really does that. He's a very crafty intermediate scorer. Like we said, great long twos for his archetype, and he's relentless giving and going, working off of DHOs. His off-ball movement is a huge strength, and he hits that soft floater in the weak spot. He's an excellent off-dribble mid-range shooter and will rip these 1-2 triple pull-ups off of curl screens fading away. That is absolutely butter. One of the prettiest shots he hit all season. And though his handle isn't great, he's willing to dribble into the paint and use his footwork, use his size, pump fake, hit a floater over a defender. And there are some like real handle flashes. I don't really know exactly what to make of plays like this where Mullins sizes up a switch and he's going to cross his ass over, spin move to the basket, but he is so unathletic and unexplosive in a linear way. He very rarely generates clean separation off the dribble, and he's a very ground-bound player. We saw that like 11 free throw rate. I think that's his biggest concern really as an offensive player, and I don't know if it's so applicable because he's going to be playing an off-ball role. I don't think you're going to see a ton of like isolated driving from him, even though he was an efficient driver this year at UConn in a small sample, and his handle just isn't that great. He's always going to draw closeouts, so I think it's useful to have a functional handle for him, but he will get the ball dug out a lot at this stage, and even on a lot of his good closeout attacks and finishes, you can see that he's not very fast in generating a lot of just like speed-based separation. But where Mullins compensates for that, is in two ways. One, with his incredible shooting gravity, he is drawing a legit closeout multiple feet beyond the line. And because of that, because this defender has to bring basically both feet outside of the arc, he gets enough separation to turn his hips, and Mullins doesn't get by him, but he decelerates and finishes through contact. Great balance and body control on a play like that. And Mullins has legit passing skill as well. To me, off-ball shooting and passing are one of the deadliest skill combos in basketball, and Mullins wields those so well. He's more than just like a connective dribble handoff passer. He can run pick and rolls, hit weak side skip passes, manipulating taggers, and he's been an excellent connective passer going back to high school. He really is a little thing king as well, and a play like this encapsulates that. Mullins is going to tap the offensive rebounds at Caravan. These are like my favorite kind of high feel plays where Mullins doesn't catch the ball here. He reads that there's an opening, and if he takes time to catch and land, it's probably closing, so he just volleyball taps it over to Caravan for a wide open layup. And his shooting gravity helps him pass as well off of these curl screens. I really do hope whatever team he lands on uses him off of a ton of actions like UConn. I mean, very few, if any, NBA offenses are quite like UConn, but a lot of them, you know, we see how the Pistons use Duncan Robinson, a Utah type offense, lots of handoff, motion, relocation, and Mullins has such a great jumper. He looks like he's going up into his fadeaway. He draws this defender all the way into contest, and then he audibles and throws it to Ray before a wide open dunk. Like, he is legit manipulative, and like I said, I just think there's a lot of little things with Mullins that are going to endear himself to NBA coaches. Like, a lot of shooters, when they ghost screen, pretty much only don't make contact and slip out. We're seeing a ton of guard and wing screens in modern basketball, but Mullins will actually make a little contact, roll hard to the rim, and call for the ball. He doesn't get it on that play, but that's something I noticed. And Mullins' defense is pretty legit for his role, and especially for his frame as a freshman. Bit of an older freshman, not that old though. And Mullins is a legit shot blocker for a shooting wing, and he'll make early rotations to wall up at the basket, use his pretty solid size and length. He's not a giant guy by any means, but I think he'll have solid enough wing size, rotate down on Cameron Boozer. What a beautiful block, timing that up. Notice Mullins wait out the pump fake. Cam initially goes for that. He doesn't jump. You can see him flinch, and then he jumps on the time where Cam does go up, spikes his shot from behind. Almesar is going to end up hitting a 3 on that play. Mullins has some very legit weak side rotations that you just don't see a lot of players in this archetype making, where once again he's rotating off of a weak side defender, noticing that there's probably going to be a rim attempt here. His defender's out of position, times that up perfectly, jumps off of 2 feet. Like, you just don't see this from a lot of freshman wings, let alone ones of Mullins' stature and level of shooting. And plays like this are all over his tape, where even though nothing happens on the box score, Mullins gives up an offensive board to Cameron Boozer. Pay attention to him, where Duke has a point guard switched onto Cameron Boozer. That is absolutely dead in the water. Mullins sees that, and he's like, hey, get out of there. I'm taking Boozer. He scrams him out. That's a scram switch. And then he fronts him physically, forces a swing, and then Gongba ends up missing the 3. And Mullins is fighting his ass off to deny the ball to Cameron Boozer. Like, he is so physically outmatched and understandably can't keep him off the glass, but Mullins will always compete and fight and be physical, which I really appreciate for players of his size. I love when he misses shots. You always see him hustling back in transition on defense. He's going to jump this pass like a free safety. There's a ton of like little things that get underrated by a lot of, more traditional draft media, just like his feel and positioning and awareness on defense. He's going to miss the steal by just inches, and Mullins doesn't have the elite wingspan that could make him a legit elite defensive prospect, which with his instincts he probably could if he had a crazy wingspan. But Mullins not only reads this peel switch, he reads the second pass as well. Tara stepping up, he's going to have to rotate to cover the interior, and he almost gets a steal reading that pass. His hands are active the whole time, digging on the ball while he's making the rotation. Outcome of this play isn't positive for UConn, but Mullins' instincts are clearly on display. But his on-ball defense is pretty poor, and I think will be a weakness for him in the NBA, undoubtedly. You're going to want him on a team with other like athletic on-ball stoppers so he can just roam and play off the ball against quick NBA athletes like Nigel James, who's awesome player, by the way. His hips open very slow, as a lot of players can fluidly recover from a position like this by just swinging open their hips like a door, but Mullins takes an extra step, he gets bumped, ends up fouling. He just isn't the most fluid player in the world. Is quite stiff, unfortunately, lacks the speed to cover these players, and always is going to like have length and fight to recover, but you can just see he's not able to cut off this player. He's a bit stiff and upright. It's easy to get leverage on him for Nigel James or a lot of quick, more NBA caliber guards, and his balance is potentially an issue to me. He falls over a good amount chasing screens and defending the ball. I've noticed this quite a bit on tape, but yeah, he just like crumbles against contact at times, falls over, and there's going to be real limitations with Braylon Mullins at the NBA level. Like, he just is going to be that level of athlete where you're probably going to have to hide him a little bit on the ball on defense. He's never going to be like a dynamic creator to the rim, but that's not what Braylon Mullins is or needs to be worthy of a top 20-ish pick in this very strong draft. Like, I think he's an elite shooting prospect, undoubtedly, with more ancillary traits: the passing, the intermediate scoring, the defensive playmaking, all of the little things he does, than most prospects of his type. Like, I think of a player like Jordan Hawkins, who I was quite low on, who to me did basically nothing NBA caliber outside of shooting. He was a very impressive movement shooter, even smaller than Mullins, but didn't have much of a passing game, couldn't really dribble, and was pretty unimpactful on defense, and he obviously has not worked out in the league. I think Mullins has some kind of concerns there, and I always do have like at least some concerns with the UConn players just because of how amazing Dan Hurley's offense is, but Mullins has produced everywhere he's been. He was awesome in college. The pre-college shooting priors are definitely a good sign. I think Mullins is going to be a rock-solid NBA player. Probably not a star, but if you're drafting to hope he can become a legit playoff starter, I think that is within his top-end range of outcomes. So let me know what you think about Braylon Mullins, who, again, so stoked for him hitting that insane game winner. I will always remember where I was when that shot, just screaming, driving back from an insane sushi spot in the car with my friends who don't care about basketball, and it was wonderful. But anyways, like, comment, subscribe would all be so appreciated, and have a great day or night, y'all.